Welcome back, everyone, to the Don Lemon Show. I have the pleasure of being joined today by Dr. Bandy Lee. Dr. Bandy Lee is a forensic psychologist and academic whose work is focused primarily on violence and a book on the psychology of the former president himself, President Donald Trump. Dr. Lee, thank you so much for coming on. The name of your book is The Psychology of Trump Contagion. The subtitle, I think, really explains what it is. The subtitle is what?
An existential threat to American democracy and all humankind.
Hmm. Did you witness that last night on the debate stage with Donald Trump?
Yes, absolutely. I would rather have not had such an exaggerated title, but it's unfortunately the truth. And yes, I became all the more concerned last night.
Let's talk about, folks are talking about, the Donald Trump's lies that he wasn't checked and so on. And that's a possibly or probably a bigger threat to our democracy than, Joe Biden's performance. But the thing I think that is trending today that is catching fire is the chaos among Democrats and even maybe at the White House and the administration, and that's Joe Biden's performance. So can you tell me your impressions, and then we'll talk about the former President Donald Trump, your impression of President Trump and President Biden and Trump's cognitive health after last night's debate?
Well, first of all, I think I should explain that the reason why uh, my eminent colleagues and I have come forth in exceptional ways in 2017 at the start of his presidency was because we believed that he posed an existential threat to the nation and to the globe because of the powers of the presidency that he would have. Someone with his psychological dangerousness and apparent mental unfitness at the time, which subsequently we came to prove when we had sufficient information. So we came from a standpoint of mental health experts who had a societal responsibility. In addition to the individual patients we see, we also have a societal responsibility. And we warned that he would be a public health threat from the very beginning. So that was when we came out at my conference at Yale School of Medicine and then published our book together, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 37 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess the president. It became an unprecedented New York Times bestseller of its kind. And our goal was to try to warn the public that this man was far more dangerous than he presented himself to
But
be.
did you witness that? I hate to cut you off, but just in the context of last night in this conversation, did it? Because I want to keep on track. I only have so much time with you, and I appreciate the history of your book. I really do. But I need to know from your experience of studying both men, and especially Donald Trump, what is your impression of Biden and Trump's cognitive health after watching the debate last night?
Yes. Watching the debate didn't truly change my assessment that Donald Trump poses
Mm.
an extreme danger. He shows psychological dangerousness of the greatest degree, and he has proven himself to be unfit. We were able to convene a panel to do a fitness evaluation when we had the appropriate information. And so, based on this panel of top
Mm.
mental health experts, independent experts, he was found to have basically failed all criteria for mental fitness. Now, we haven't had the same kind of alarming signs or actually no alarming signs from Joe Biden. Based on watching him last night, of course, we can see he comes across as very old and frail. And he's certainly aged a great deal from the presidency, just like every other president who actually does the job of the president. And so I can see how his impression would be very dramatic to people. And people would see him as a very old man and frail. And but unfortunately, or fortunately, this does not rise to the level of unfitness. These are not really the criteria we look at. In fact, he hasn't presented him as being psychologically dangerous. And from his performance, he has actually proven himself to be mentally fit. So I ordinarily don't comment on people who don't pose a danger to society, because that's the threshold for which we feel obligated to
Oh wow!
speak.
But excuse me, the current president is receiving criticism for looking lost, speaking a low volume, stumbling through his own words and ideas, your own words, appearing frail and old. What did you make of his mental acuity, though? Is there a way for you to assess that?
Yes, I have found no concerns whatsoever as for uh, what is required for fitness for the presidency. In other words, the things that we evaluate are the ability to take in facts, information, and advice, the ability to process that information, manipulate it in ways where he can uh, consider multiple scenarios, and to make decisions while considering consequences of his decisions, as well as his ability not to be dangerous to the public. And he's met all those criteria. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has failed all those criteria. And so maybe what we look at as mental health experts is different than what the public looks at. And that's why I feel that in this presidential race, where mental competence is perhaps the defining feature, um, that the input of mental health experts would be important, because what seems salient to the public may not necessarily be the features of the greatest importance.
Um, so for President Biden, I'm wondering though, if is there an alternative explanation? As you said, the criteria for mental health experts such as yourself are different than for the average person who's watching. His aides, folks who've worked with him, even Kevin McCarthy, obviously who's on the other side of the political aisle, they've all claimed that he is sharp in private. But is that even possible for someone to, to be fully functional and come off as incoherent over 90 minutes?
I'm not sure he came across as being that incoherent. There were times when he had word finding difficulties, or there were pauses, but those were quickly recovered, and he regained himself in terms of facts,
Doctor, would
reasoning.
be I think it would be better if I played this so that you can respond to it. And hold your thought. I want to play this. This is when he's talking about the border patrol and what's going on with the border. And even the former president at the end said, I have no idea what he said, and I'm not sure he even knows. Here it is. Let's play it, and then I'll get you to respond.
The total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
So he was there in that clip talking about, he said, more border patrol, and I couldn't hear him before, but now I hear him now. He said, and more asylum officers. So I heard him there. Go on. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I wanted you to hear that before you answered. So there it is.
I actually don't know what the question was. It doesn't
How
seem
can you
that
said
out
he's
of
fully
place.
functional, but then come off as incoherent over 90 minutes? Because people have said that, he's sharp and whatever, but they did not witness that on stage last night.
Yes, that's where I too am concerned, because his actual performance does not come through in his presentation. His actual performance was actually not just in terms of his track record, but even in the transcripts with the special counsel Robert Hur, which was published, showed that he was able to hold multiple hours of interview with, able to deal with complex ideas, give nuanced responses, and even be witty at times. So I find him to be at a high level of cognitive functioning, except he also has these signs of age-appropriate aging. What I have observed in him is age-appropriate cognitive changes, which occurs with everyone. Cognitive decline starts in one's 30s, um, usually, and continues throughout the rest of one's life. It is normal. He shows age appropriate lapses, but it is not of the concern that he would not be able to carry out his function in the presidential office.
Yeah. So you answered my question. I said that, if he's showing age appropriate sort of cognitive decline, or however you might want to the term, whatever term you may want to use. Um, how do you then figure out if he should be in the position to be the leader of the free world? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I think we need to be much more concerned about the dramatic cognitive decline that we've seen in Donald Trump. Just because he covers it up well, because his defenses, these are actually pathological defenses of overcompensating with his bravado, with this, even his energy, comes more from emotional compulsion because he's trying to compensate. Not just for his cognitive problems, he's shown actually quite serious cognitive problems over time. He substitutes words, he has clang associations, he has paraphrasias, he has persistence, just continuing with a certain thought. He has shown neurological signs. He is the one who does not show age-appropriate decline, but rather a rapid decline in certain areas and has shown alarming signs. But he also has very strong symptoms of dangerous personality disorders, which are more concerning. And those can come across as his being strong, confident, and capable. But in fact, it's a cover for the opposite.
Do you think that Donald Trump's criminal conviction could have possibly altered his psychology in some way? All of the court cases and criminal and civil cases that he's been involved in, do you think that could have altered his psychology in some way?
Yes, very much so. It was very stressful for him. He was confined in a courtroom for 5 weeks and forced to face reality, which he has a hard time dealing with. And then it just came out in terms of extremely violent, belligerent language when he left the courtroom, even calling Joe Biden and the judge a devil. He was provocative in ways that his followers were engaging in violent rhetoric, that people had to come and murder the judge and pretty much have a violent insurrection. So yes, he deteriorated greatly, and he had to use the occasion to try to pump himself up. And that's when also all the donations flooded in, because people sensed that he emotionally needed this. We don't realize to what degree we have responded to him by coddling his psychology, by buttressing him so that he will not fall apart. And that's part of what I describe in my new book, The Psychology of Trump Contagion, that the reason why we came out saying that he was a public health threat, not just someone with an individual dangerous psychology, but that because of the powerful and influential position to which he was elected, he would spread his symptoms over time to the point where his individual psychological dangers have become social, cultural, geopolitical, and civic dangers. And we don't see mental symptoms as being contagious, But in fact, they are even more so than physical symptoms, because you don't need physical exposure for them to spread. You just need emotional bonds.
Doctor, do you think that we're at the point in American politics where voters should demand that candidates release their cognitive fitness test?
I think it's a very good idea to require a fitness test. In fact, all military officers are required to take one before they take their positions, and all people who handle nuclear weapons are required to pass rigorous psychological testing and to renew it every year. That the person who commands these weapons and who leads the most powerful military on the planet, I believe, should be required to pass the same standardized testing as his subordinates do. In fact, it is said that the 10% of highly mentally disordered individuals who get into leadership positions are responsible for 90% of the world's atrocities. And so if we were to require a fitness test, it would be a screen against such individuals reaching such positions of power.
Do you see any issue with any of the men who were on that stage last night? They're cognitively or psychologically healthy enough? Do you believe that they both are to be the commander in chief?
Oh, I don't think that of Donald Trump at all. That's the reason why at first 27, which was expanded to 37, and then thousands of mental health professionals came forth through my organization, the World Mental Health Coalition, because we all agreed that he showed signs of dangerous psychology, and that he would pose a risk not just to American democracy, but to the perpetuation of the human species, because of the technology that he would have at his disposal. And you don't even have to take my word for it. He has shown himself to be very violent in his thinking, in his instigation of others. He has engaged in violent rhetoric. He has boasted about his sexual assaults. He has taunted nuclear powers. He has incited his followers to a violent insurrection. And he has caused the death of 1.2 million Americans through his egregious mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you know about the nature of pandemics, how important it is to handle them in the early stages, or the deaths would become exponential, then you would understand that the vast majority of those deaths are caused by Donald Trump. And in fact, I believe that if we had a mentally fit president at the time, we would not have had a pandemic at all, that it would have stopped at the epidemic stage, just like all the other potential pandemics in the past.
Dr. Bandy Lee, we appreciate you joining us, and we appreciate your expertise and your insight. Thank you, Doctor. You be well. I appreciate you joining us on The Don Lemon Show. Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show. Make sure you click on the image in the top right to subscribe to my channel, and the thumbnail in the bottom right to watch more content from my show. And I'll see you next time.